Hey guys, my name is Mike, and I'm a former New York City bouncer who went from sleeping on the streets of New York to becoming a bouncer, making like $10,000 a year, to making $10,000 a month. Went to school, got two master's degrees, worked for one of the top consulting firms in the world, and now I'm living my dream life. I live in my dream home. I have my dream car. Doing great, but I'm trying to work on my own mental sharpness, my mental toughness, and I'm trying to go into entrepreneurship now, start my own business, and that's going great. I'll tell you guys more about that as I continue on that journey. But I wanted to talk with you today about mental discipline and what exactly is that? What does it mean to have mental discipline, and what was my journey through that? And I heard David Goggins explain this in a really great way, which is mental discipline is like it's like organizing your garage. So if you guys have a garage or a storage space, or hell, even just your closet at home, and it's like super disorganized. There's just stuff everywhere. Things aren't on shelves. Things are just piled up. You got piles of clothes in the corner, or boxes of tools and things like that in the garage. And you want to go into it and get some tool out, or you want to get some piece of clothing or something out. You're not going to be able to find it because just stuff is jumbled up everywhere. Every time you open it, you get some kind of anxiety just looking into it. And that's what an undisciplined mind is like. My mind was like that for a long time. So if you organize that garage, let's just stick with the garage metaphor. If you organize it, you can find your tools quicker, right? You ever seen like Jay Leno's Garage or something, right? Where you open up, it's this beautiful giant warehouse type deal, and he's got rows of cars neatly organized, and he can say, I want the Ferrari, I want the Lambo, I want the Pontiac, I want whatever, I want the Volvo. He can just grab whatever car he wants. He's got his keys nicely organized in a rack somewhere, and it's easy for him to get the things. If he needs some tools, if he needs oil, if he needs a wrench, he's got all that stuff neatly organized somewhere, and it's beautiful. It's well lit. It's nicely organized. It's a place of like calm and peace, and you just want to sit there and shoot a podcast, or smoke a cigar, or whatever it is that he does in that garage. It's a nice, calming place. Whereas, some people's garages, I mean, they're complete shitholes. There's, rotting cardboard boxes in the corner. There's even a mouse infestation. There's rat droppings everywhere. There's spider cobwebs up in the ceiling, and it's a fucking mess. And if your garage is like that, it's a reflection of your state of mind. And if your mind is like that, you want to go in to get something, but you got to reach, to the back of a pile of shit through some cobwebs and around the rat droppings and stuff, and that's what your mind is like, then, I mean, you're in a lot of trouble. And a lot of people, like I did for a long time, would just drink, find escape in substances that would help you, disregard the fact that your mind is so fucked up. Your thoughts are so disorganized. There's absolutely no discipline. And what that means is, like, if you have to, go to school and you have to study for an exam, but your mind is so disorganized, so undisciplined, you're going to be like, I don't know if I'm going to study. Then you find yourself studying last minute because you're not structured, you have no agenda, you don't have anything planned out. I mean, that's what an organized mind is. That's what mental discipline is. It's organizing your mind and organizing your life and your structure. That's why, executives at big corporations, CEOs, they have personal assistants, because a personal assistant helps them to organize their mind. It helps them organize their daily life, their structure out their day, so they have a meeting at this time, right? And then they have to go do some work for at this time, then they have to go meet this client, then they have to go have lunch, and they continue, like, everything's structured out. And that's, we can't all afford personal assistants to help us, but that's what you need to be able to do yourself. So when I didn't have mental discipline, I just did whatever I wanted, right? So if I'm in the middle of the workday and I'm like, I feel like going to the bathroom, taking a long bathroom break and just, disappearing, or, during my lunch break, I would jump in a car, go drive off somewhere for 2 hours and, not really do my work and just kind of screw around. That affects my work, but it's also me not being mentally disciplined. And, a lot of people, including myself, I was mentally disciplined not enough not to get fired. And, generally I'm a good worker. I do my work, and, I usually excel at what I do. But when I'm at home, where I need to have the mental discipline to build a business or to become sober or whatever, that mental discipline was lacking. So I come home and just do whatever I want. So for me, for a long time, that was to, drink and play video games or watch YouTube channels and just do whatever the hell I wanted. And I would clean the house once in a while or something like that. But for the most part, I was just doing whatever I wanted. And that's a lack of mental discipline. So the way I was able to develop mental discipline is by doing extremely hard things. The hardest thing that I could do that I dreaded doing I did this years ago when I became very successful. When I was, I guess you could say, like an alpha male, and I met my future wife. I had an 8-pack, I looked great. I said, I need to do the same thing now in my 30s, which was do the hardest thing I could do, which is go to the gym every morning at 4 a.m. I got to be up at 3:30, 3:45, be in the gym at 4 a.m. and do a workout, do an hour of lifting, and then run for 10 miles on the elliptical. And when I started, I wasn't running 10 miles, I wasn't working out an hour, right? But just getting to the gym every day for 10 minutes was a struggle. But I set a very simple goal. I said, I'm gonna get back into the gym. And then as I was working out, I realized, wow, I really can't drink anymore, because if I drink the day before, I really don't wanna work out the next day. And I wanna be trying to do a light jog or run on, or walk uphill on a treadmill, and just burping up, alcohol and bile from the night before, like it's gross. But not only that, I knew I wanted to become sober, and becoming sober is hard enough, but then also working out early in the morning is really hard. So by going to the gym and working out, I know a lot of you say, oh, well, what's the point? There's plenty of meatheads out there who are, they're huge, they're jacked, but they're complete dumbasses. Well, you're not one of those meatheads, because you're here trying to figure out how to discipline yourself and how to get better. So that you want more out of life. You want to, at least at a minimum, be physically attractive to yourself, but also you want to make more money. So you're smart enough that you want that. But also, by going to the gym and working out, you're kind of like, you're forcing yourself into a situation where you're beginning to align your mind with your conscience, which is something that you should be doing. And for many years, I would just drown in alcohol. The conscience would say, don't drink that, fuck you, and I'd just drink, right? And then it just goes away. You'll be able to hide your conscience by drowning it in alcohol. So when you go to the gym, you're standing there saying, God, I don't want to be here, I don't want to work out. But your conscience is telling you, hey, you're here, now you got to lift these weights. There's weights sitting there on the rack, you got to pick them up, and you got to do some curls. You got to get on a treadmill and walk, or get on the elliptical and run. You have to do something, you're here now. And you say, well, that's true, I am here now, what else am I going to do? There's nothing else I can do. I guess I could sit. That's a complete waste of time, but I got to do something. So you start aligning yourself with your conscience. Your conscience tells you, get to the gym. You say, yes, sir, and you get to the gym, whatever time that is for you. It doesn't have to be 4 a.m., could be 6. But I think the earlier, the time that you hate the most, hell, if you hate working out in the afternoons, make it the afternoon then, that's fine. But point is that you start aligning yourself with your conscience. You get to the gym, you start working out, and you go, man, that was that sucked, but you do it, and then eventually over time, when you're in your apartment or you're in your office, you're saying, man, I really want to start a business, but which kind of business? Before, you used to kind of like, whatever, you just ignore it. You just maybe drink away the pain of not making enough money and say, fuck it, I'll start a business someday. But it's been years and years later, you haven't started a business. So now you're like, I want to start a business. Well, I really should sit down and think about this, like really do it. And you'll pull out a freaking, a notebook and a pen, and you sit down and you actually start writing things down. The things you've been ignoring all this time because you had no self-discipline, you had no mental space in your garage, you had no organization to sit down and say, okay, you know what, I'm going to do the right thing here. I'm going to sit down and think about what business do I want. And then you sit there, well, how do I figure it out? And you go online, you start Googling, you start YouTubing, and you figure it out from there, and you build it up slowly. So when you build that mental discipline to get going at the gym and to work out in the gym, you're going to eventually start translating and moving that mental discipline over to the regular real world. You become more aligned with your conscience, and when your conscience is telling you, hey, you should really stop drinking, make you better at working out every morning, you say, yeah, I think so, I think that's true. And you'll start listening to it more and more. And eventually when your conscience says, hey, you really don't like this job, you're unhappy, and you realize that 20, 30 years from now, you're gonna regret not opening up that nail salon or selling that shit on Amazon, trying out Amazon FBA, or trying to start an SMMA business or something like that. Eventually you're gonna realize, okay, you know what? You're gonna start listening to your conscience more and more. You're gonna have more and more of that mental discipline to do the things that you need to do. And you're gonna say, well, I wanna get all these things done, but how am I gonna do it? Well, you're gonna start becoming organized. And whether it's analog, using paper and pen, or digitally on your phone, you're gonna start figuring it out. And you're gonna build that mental discipline to succeed. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions or comments, please like and subscribe, leave some comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one.